and welcome to another Good Morning Thailand. Good morning to you, or maybe it's good afternoon or good evening, depending where you are somewhere around the world. And thank you very much to all the feedback from yesterday. This whole week is going to be a bit of easing ourselves into this program, trying different things and introducing new guests. Speaking of which, from yesterday we've got back Bill Barnett from C9 Hotel Works. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, we're back again. Well, like it or not, here we are.
Here we are. And we've also got today Bier. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're B-I-E-R.
Yep.
Bier. Why that spelling?
I changed it.
You changed it.
I was born just a simple beer. And then I changed it after I took a German class in high school. So I changed it to beer. I thought it was cool.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that was that.
And you're so famous, like Madonna, or
Exactly.
you only have one name. You only require
Just one name.
Exactly.
I don't have a stage name.
Do you have a logo? No. You just get a
I
logo.
do. I
you
do.
got a
For
logo.
my own
Okay.
company.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Big B. All right, now let's get into some of the comments from one of our members. We say good morning to Scott D. He asked the question, there has been a sizable shift transition of tourists to Thailand pre-COVID. It used to be mainly tourists from Western Europe, Australia and North America. Now more and more tourists are coming from China, India and Russia. Is this accurate or complete rubbish? Either way, what does it mean for Thailand? Thank you, Scott D. Good question. And I think the best person to answer that, Bill Barnett.
I think pre-COVID, going back to 2019, there are about 38 million travelers to Thailand, in terms of that. Certainly we saw, going back, take a market like Phuket. In Phuket, probably close to 50% of international travelers come from two markets, mainland China and Russia. It's highly tainted towards that.
When did that occur? 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
It occurred, really started after the global financial crisis. We started to see the economies in Asia start to regenerate themselves quickly. And that was the rise of the middle class to consumer class, these emerging markets. And certainly at the end of the day, Thailand, where we sit, it's location. And you have to understand that, Thailand sits in Phuket, places like Phuket as well. They're within 6 to 8 hours of about a third of the world's population. So it's simply metrics driven.
So the situation, though, is that there's a perception that it's mostly Chinese and Russians, and you say that that's correct. And is it uniform around Thailand?
No. Of course, once you go around other places in Thailand, it is more balanced because you have business travelers, you have other types of travelers as well. But certainly it is tainted towards a rising regional market. And it comes down to airlift. You can't stay there if you can't get there. And low-cost airlines and direct service, hopping on a plane before COVID became so easy. Why not pop into Thailand for lunch coming from Singapore or Hong Kong?
Bier, in your travels, what do you see regarding tourists? Who do you notice the most? What sort of tourists?
Wow, I think both. Well, probably more Chinese, actually everywhere, even in Europe. I think they really everywhere. And I think China then expanded, they just wanted their people to go and explore, other countries more. And some Chinese tourists, I don't think they've ever been out anywhere. Sure. So when they're out, they really let loose.
Yes.
And there's more coming, Tim. Don't forget, under 10% of mainland Chinese have passports. Imagine once they all start getting passports.
So there's 1.4 billion people there. And if you were involved with Thai tourism, isn't it a smart business idea to hitch your train to the Chinese mainland tourism market? Because and they're 4 or 5 hours away.
Not necessarily. The only thing about business-wise, because rise and fall. One market goes south and you're highly leveraged in a single market. So you do have single country risk. Something happens in China, they decide not to travel, you get in a dispute. We've seen that happen with China, with Korea before as well, and all of a sudden they turn off the tap and your business is gone. So it's never a great idea to simply bank on one horse.
The Chinese tourism market got heavily dented after the big boat accident in July 2018.
Sure.
So before COVID, had the Chinese numbers rebounded?
They hadn't got back to where they were in terms of that, certainly, but we did see an uptick in that, but certainly Chinese sentiment. You're not looking at Facebook, you're looking at different social media standards as well, and there was a reputation for Thailand, reputation for some of these markets, took a beating as well, certainly. So I think that was to come into play, but it is a prolific market, and probably it's going to be one of the first markets to come back after COVID.
So Scott D is right in saying that there are more Russian and Chinese tourists coming to Thailand.
Sure.
And what's going to happen with the Western Europeans, in your opinion, in the future?
Western Europeans, again, if we go to some of the southern resort markets of Thailand, whenever it snows, we call these the snowbirds. As soon as it gets winter in Northern Europe and Russia and Scandinavia, they're going to want to come to Thailand. So they are going to come back. Those markets are not going to go away. The snow is not going to stop at the end of the day, no matter what's going to happen. So you're going to see these tourists continue to travel.
Another comment from yesterday from one of the people on our YouTube channel. They said, I like your news and feeds, but please, why is it only bad news almost all the time? It's so sad to read all this bad news all the time when there is so much good and positive news in the Kingdom of Thailand. And that's from Tom. Thank you, Tom, very much for responding to the Thaiger. What is it about good news and bad news? My feeling is, as a person who basically runs the content of a news business, is that the good news doesn't sell. People like bad news.
I think something we were talking to Bier before we actually came on camera. You don't actually watch news, right?
I do watch news sometimes, but when you see something that is negative, I think your brain kind of tells you to pick that up first, because you want to see, that there's something you would know more and you want to know more. Good news, it's good news, you kind of, it's there, but that's why, people read bad news. That's why there are more bad news.
I think in America there were some experiments in the late 80s and 90s of networks who tried to do good news channels, but they failed. And then you had the rise of things like Fox News, which love concentrating on the bad news and regurgitating it and really pushing it and rewriting it so that it becomes even more gory and dirty and slimy, and people seem to gravitate to that.
We've become bad news junkies. After 4 years of the tweeting Cheeto in the U.S., I mean, we every day people get. It's very similar years ago.
The
tweeting Cheeto.
The tweeting
Cheeto who is no longer exactly with us.
You'd be referring to the former U.S. president?
Correct.
Okay.
People were addicted every day. It became part of your daily routine. Years ago, during the O.J. Simpson trial, it was very intriguing because at that time, that was when Fox News was emerging as well. People were looking at the car chases, live and all this reality TV, and people were obsessed with this. It became an obsession that they had to tune into these dramatic events day in and day out. After the O.J. trial, people didn't know what to do. There was a letdown. It was almost like having a cup of coffee and having decaf, right? Who the hell wants to have decaf?
So my feeling is that Thai people like the drama. They like the bad news. Is that right?
I would say so. Yes. There's when something happens, they just want to. They want to talk
text
about
their friends.
Yes, they want to spread the rumors.
The
they
bad
want
news.
Yes, and they want to say something that's is not true or not that bad, but they would want to make it, more talkable, I would say.
We know that when we post stories, we can track how a story is going very easily through our sort of analytics. And we know when we post a bad news story, it simply gets more traction than a good news story. It's just the way it is. So we need to provide what our readers and viewers want. And sadly, most of the time they want bad news.
And comments as well.
And comments.
Yeah, comments.
Yes,
because
lots
when
of
you
comments.
get one bad comment and then you get another 10 bad comments,
they feed off each other.
There's a lot of haters out there. There's a lot of haters.
Speaking of the comment section, yesterday we were battling to come up with a name for our response, our listener response, viewer response. Somebody suggested Thaiger Growl. The person actually is called Thailand Dreaming. And they dreamt this one, Thaiger Growl. Is that good enough?
Does a tiger growl? Does a tiger roar? Does a tiger purr?
I think tigers roar. And you don't want to get close
taken.
enough to hear if a tiger's purring or not.
Well, actually, there's the crouching tiger as well. So.
Yes, but that sounds a bit tame for us.
Okay.
Are you happy with Thaiger Growl?
Yes, I think that's very catchy.
All right, so we'll call this the Thaiger Growl segment. Let's have a talk about something that is on everybody's lips at the moment, one way or another, alcohol bans. Around Thailand, in a lot of provinces, not all, there are alcohol bans. Why do we have alcohol bans, Bill?
I think certainly there's the perception that these occasions are places where people are gathering together. And really, when you look at the Thai government in terms of trying to contain events outside, they are saying that gathering of people does spread COVID, which is logical. We understand that. But certainly in terms of targeting these type of events and saying, does everybody who walk in a restaurant has a glass of wine, are they gathering, are too many people gathering, is COVID spreading from that? Statistically, you could argue against that, certainly, because, we see these big outbreaks of COVID in the worker camps and the prisons and everything else. These guys aren't drinking. I don't think they are.
But the outbreak originally started in the Tong Lo area with all these high-so nightclubs and stuff where clearly people were drinking. So I think that's given them impetus and ammunition to push the alcohol bans. How are you finding with your friends? How are they coping with the alcohol bans? Do they care?
No. Well, they do care, and we all think it's a bit ridiculous with the alcohol ban. We all want to drink, but I think this encourages people to actually drink more and buy more and store more drinks at home, and then you tend to maybe drink more.
Without naming any particular establishments, have you noticed there have been quite a few little restaurants or cafes or bars who have been serving alcohol under the counter?
Yes, there has been, of course. I'm sure we all know that, and of course I'm not going to mention any names, but yes, I think they all struggle. They want to do something. And in my opinion, this is a bit crazy. People sit there and eat. Why can't they have a glass of wine, with their meal? They're sitting there spending 2 hours. It's still 2 hours. They're still getting together.
So as we know, Bill, police have sort of weaponised this current law, and there have been some high-profile cases of people enjoying themselves, perhaps socially or even gathering in a restaurant. What do you think about the police using all their resources to go and arrest these people, these naughty people who have been consuming alcohol in the comfort of their own home?
I think, to a point, there's a lot of Thailand bashing. People say this is outrageous, this is ridiculous. At the end of the day, they will make examples. This is with any kind of action, in these type of circumstances. If you go to Singapore and you saw there was the party boat, there was the expats who were on the party boat, they've been fined and deported. So you want to think Thailand's bad, look at these other countries as well. So I think sometimes you have to look around over your shoulder, look at what's happening in other places as well. Is this happening? Are they trying to detour these events for the public good? Probably. Is it misdone? Probably. Certainly, without a doubt. For restaurants, the restaurants are suffering. My heart goes out to bars and restaurants, the people working in these outlets. I think that's probably the biggest issue right now, is saying, why can't these establishments responsibly serve tables of four with alcohol? They're still going to close early. People aren't gathering in mass events. It's a ridiculous thing, and it really has to stop, because otherwise they're going to really constrain the entire restaurant business across Thailand, and that's going to cost people jobs. It's going to cost them their businesses.
So overall, Bier, are people drinking more or less at the moment, do you think?
More, definitely more.
More.
We can't even drink on the beach.
So they go home and drink instead?
Right. Yes, I mean, or they, people can do all sorts of things. I mean, I would. Or just go to the beach.
I mean, COVID's had two extremes.
And just put it in a different container.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think it's been two extremes of
arrest me.
I think it's been two extremes of COVID.
It's crazy. Yeah. Why can't they sit outside and drink?
Yeah, you've had people who've gone to alcoholism, which is or drinking heavily. People who I know who would have one glass of wine at night, they're drinking the whole bottle. Then you also have people who are going, the new hedonism is veganism. You have vegetarians as well. People are going the other way also and saying, I'm not going to drink at all. So you have two routes here. It's kind of interesting because you have a lot of people are going the other route as well. So we can't just say everybody's declining and sitting at home drinking, but there are a lot of people getting more healthy as well. So it's kind of two ends of the spectrum, but where do you find something in the middle?
But I think people would tend to drink more.
Can I ask you both, over the past year, what have you changed anything fundamental about your life because of COVID? Have you made any big changes?
I have, definitely.
In what way?
I think I grew closer to my family. With my partner and my son, we spent a lot of time cooking, and that was great. But I know that doesn't happen to a lot of families. There was domestic violence as well. People, got stuck together in such a small apartment or small condos, and I feel really bad for them. But for me, unfortunately, it's got better. We spend time together, we cook together, we drink together.
How about the Barnett household?
I think certainly you tend to be closer to your friends. You tend to put your relationships first. And I think coming out of COVID or coming out of the pandemic, people are going to want to get back with friends and family. They're going to value those times. And I think we're going to look back at arguably some of the worst times of our lives and say these perhaps were some of the best times of our lives. Honestly speaking, some of the values we've gotten back and slowed down and seen things as well. aside from the economic crisis and everything else the pandemic's taught us, is to have time with those we love.
All right, well, at this time we're going to now check out the main Thai news stories today. The government's urge to clarify private hospitals' vaccination role. Seems we get new news about that every few days. A man's body's found in a Pattaya lotus lagoon. Rebel troops killed 20 Burmese officers. And the former leader Aung San Suu Kyi has appeared in court. An ongoing story over there in Myanmar. Man arrested for allegedly posing as a doctor to sell items in an online scam. Apparently he's been doing it for 10 years. And trained dogs are highly accurate at identifying COVID-19 infections, according to a study. Right, they're the main stories around Thailand at the moment. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the vaccine rollout, and this has just come up today, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this. This is mostly from information from the Bangkok Post, and it says the government has decided that the second dose of AstraZeneca vaccines will now be administered 16 weeks after the first dose, as opposed to 10 weeks, insisting the delay won't have any negative effect on the immune response against COVID-19. The move came following reports that several hospitals have suspended inoculations with the AstraZeneca vaccine amid a shortage in Thailand. So it looks like all these best laid plans might have run amok because they're just not getting the deliveries. I know that Phuket, they are trying to get a rollout of vaccines very quickly so they can get to a herd immunity, some 70% level before this apparent July 1 opening. But is this shortage going to be a problem?
I think, there is a shortage. We understand that we're seeing delays. We also are seeing vaccinations ongoing, and I think that's a positive thing. Throughout most of Thailand, we are seeing the vaccination process going. But it's actually interesting to me because I haven't had the vaccine. I don't think you've had the vaccine yet. Bier, have you had the vaccine?
I had my first shot, yes.
Right, do you know what vaccine it was?
It was Sinovac.
Sinovac, okay.
That's the only choice we had.
What made you want to take the vaccine? I think that's kind of intriguing. Why?
I didn't want to, but...
did they make you?
Not really,
okay.
But my partner and I had planned to travel. We were actually thinking of going to Europe and going to see the family. So we thought, if we don't have any vaccine whatsoever, we don't think we can travel. So we have to have something. So I was actually waiting to get Johnson & Johnson if I was going to have anything. But again, it's not coming out yet. So I thought, okay, I have to have something. So then I had to have the only thing that was available, which is Sinovac.
Why didn't you want it? Go on, tell us.
At the beginning, I don't really believe in the virus, and I thought that it was, there's something there. There's a flu, there's a bad flu. But I thought that my body can cope with it. I'm pretty healthy, and I hardly get sick. So I thought that my body would just build, immune system, and then I would just get over it. And, I wasn't actually worried much.
It's actually interesting how many people start thinking about the vaccine stories, about saying, do you believe there's COVID out there? Do you believe that this is a conspiracy or anything else? I know.
Yeah.
Did you have those thoughts?
I thought it was conspiracy, of course. I thought that this was created, and I've seen things, and again I've seen other things, and I thought, and I've heard from other stories, some friends that lost their loved ones. I thought, oh, maybe there was something, but maybe they had complications. That's why they.
But you watched a documentary fairly early on, and that documentary, which was about the conspiracy theories, about the virus being created in a lab in Wuhan, they influenced your feelings about the virus and the vaccines?
Yes, yeah. I thought that they created something. They wanted to spread this. They wanted to create this pandemic.
Who is they?
Chinese government.
The Chinese government.
The Chinese, not the Chinese government. That was claimed. Okay, this is not coming out from me. And this is a bit like 9/11. If I don't defend anyone. So they created that, and of course there's money to be made there. The vaccines, the travel after that. products, anything that you have to purchase from, from one sort of country that would provide actually, and has been going, right? We rely on, China so much about almost everything, 90%, I think it was.
I think one of the great things that we can talk about, the main thing is that you should be able to ask questions. People should be able to ask questions.
Yeah.
People should be able to say, why is this? What is this? The conclusions, we're all going to make that decision. I mean, at the end of the day, the vaccine is a decision. And if you want to have the vaccine, have the vaccine. I'm going to take it, in terms of that. I'll choose to what I believe and everything else. But in terms of, who they are, sometimes I just think it's undermining in terms of people looking at this and the rumors and things versus looking at fact. Because at the end of the day, you see the anti-vaxxers saying we don't want something, they're going to embed something in our bodies or something else. We don't know what we're taking. But what happens when you go to Burger King? What's in your Whopper? When I go to Starbucks and get a latte, what's in my latte? Who knows what's out there anyway?
What's in my paracetamol tablet?
Yeah. So I think that whole thing. But it's interesting, certainly from Thai's perspective. I think it's good to voice those questions. That's really important to have the dialogue.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's fair, because you have to base your decisions and your opinions around the facts. And there simply isn't any evidence that this vaccine was created in a lab. The evidence is against that contention. So I think we have to keep our minds focused on facts.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, comments, you got some comments yesterday you'd like to go through?
There's a few interesting ones. Okay, one, but sorry I didn't take names. I know I'll get this right on the next show, but certainly. Okay, stay away from the mark of the beast, Lucifer's injection. Okay, so this is mark of the beast, as we know, Revelation, the end of days, 666, everything else. I guess that's the mark of the beast. Well, maybe not the mark of the tiger, or the tiger growls.
So somebody has been able to get the topic of vaccines for COVID-19 and a story out of the book of Revelation,
the end of days,
in the Old Testament, put them together and say that the vaccine is the mark of the beast.
And Lucifer.
But this is just complete storytelling going crazy.
Absolutely, it's nonsense. But as we know about, hey, somebody's writing and somebody's under the impression that Lucifer is injecting the vaccine. Mark of the beast, I guess, would be the vaccine mark. Sure.
Will there be a vaccine mark? I don't think that this vaccine leaves a mark.
No, not as far as we know.
I'm full of vaccines.
Sure.
When I was young, I was getting measles and mumps and rubella and polio. I think I've had all the vaccines. I somehow seem to have survived.
Yeah.
Another one of the comments. It's nothing to do with the mark of the beast.
Please stop talking about the vaccine. Please stop. Please stop.
Too late.
Sorry, there's a long silence. What else in terms of that? It's going to be a news story for a very long time. It's going to be with us aptly longer than the tweeting Cheeto was. So that's okay.
Well, as we slowly sort of emerge from the whole COVID-19 situation, the vaccine situation will be something that everybody's going to be talking about, because it's unlikely that airlines are going to let people get on their planes without being vaccinated. Countries aren't going to allow people to come into those countries unless they've been vaccinated, or they'll have to do quarantine. The people who don't want to have the vaccines for real or imagined reasons are going to then be sort of separated and polarised in society, those that had the vaccine, those that didn't have the vaccine. It is going to be a hot topic for the next 12 months.
I think the one word we're going to get away from is post-COVID, because what is post-COVID? It's going to be with us for a very long time. So that whole term's going to go away.
All right, what else have you got?
Who made the picture on the wall? This is the Thaiger.
Oh,
Tell us the story of the Thaiger. Do you like the Thaiger?
I do. Yeah, exactly. I like the colours.
Yeah, that painting, I can't remember the person's name. She was a student at BIS, and I saw it one day when I was at the school, and I thought, that would be great on the wall of a company called the Thaiger. So I bought it. I paid 3,000 baht for it, and we love it. It's a real painting, and it's mine.
There we go.
Bier, you've got a fear for pregnant women at the moment. What's this based around?
It was more like a question, actually, that because I've got a son, a 16-year-old son. So my question would be, if he ever going to get a vaccine, or if he want to get a vaccine, when can he have it? Because the gap is quite great. So it will be in 2 years' time, and by then, what's going to happen? And also there is a gap that
because he's not 18.
because it's not 18.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
I think Sinovac is for people aged between 18 to 60.
18 to 60,
Yeah.
yes.
So when are those people going to be vaccinated?
And pregnant women
Yes, as
who've
well.
got the same situation
Yeah,
that they can't
different
be.
stages, and same as teens.
I mean, something we see about the sandbox model, they are addressing that because they're saying, what about children? And we are seeing Pfizer roll out a model where children 12 and above are able to start taking the vaccine. There has to be a process because if you're going to want to travel, you're going to have a vaccine. It's simply going to be that way. And what they're saying is for children who are younger, they're going to have to come in and do antigen tests, in terms of that kind of process to say that's how people are going to start traveling again. But I think in general, if you want to go to Europe or something else, you're going to have vaccine.
But there is also some countries only accept people that are vaccinated with certain vaccines. I think 4,
Sure.
and not Sinovac.
Sure. And the one thing we're seeing,
That's my problem.
And the one thing I saw in the news was the breathalyzers now in terms of that technology. This technology, as we said, we talked about 9/11 the other day, technology of travel will change. And eventually there'll be rapid testing, there'll be breathalyzers, there'll be greater testing, so people will be able to slowly come back into those processes. It's going to be a while though.
Looking at the overall picture in Thailand, the provincial totals are generally slowly dropping, and this is a good thing. That's the trend. But in Bangkok, the numbers are going up, centred around the prisons, the high-density housing communities, some of the slums like the Klong Toi slum, which is not a word I like to use, but that really is what they call themselves, and also migrant worker camps. So this is the current situation we have in Thailand, where the capital has got a trend that's going up every day whilst the provinces are dropping. Can Thailand sort of reopen the country with this situation of its capital sort of under siege from the virus, but perhaps in places like Pattaya or Samui or Phuket, they don't have any cases?
Well, the numbers, statistically, there's 15 million people in Greater Bangkok, so of course you're going to have more COVID cases. It's just do the math in terms of that. I think that's really important. So I think the sandbox model is not just places like Phuket. It includes Krabi, it includes Koh Samui, it includes Pattaya, it includes Chiang Mai as well. So we are going to see these markets tested first. It's not, the doors aren't just going to open and people are going to say, oh, it's fine, we're back. It's going to be a process, so it's going to take time. But I think those developments will take place in the smaller markets.
Bier, where are you heading to? Where's the first place in Thailand you want to head to when you can travel again?
Ooh, probably Samui or Chiang Rai, just to get out of Phuket and see something different. Probably Chiang Rai or Chiang Mai, yeah.
All right. Well, there's direct flights there
Yes.
with Vietjet.
Vietjet, yes, that's right, yeah.
Free plug for them. With that, Bier, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you,
Bill.
nice
Thank
to
you,
see you.
Tim.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jay, pressing the buttons. And thank you. And of course, you can comment and we'll get through your comments during the day and talk about the best ones tomorrow. But that's another Good Morning Thailand in the bag. Thank you for joining us.